Hello again and welcome back to my channel, and we have finally reached the weekend of my one-handed makers challenge, and this is my own entry for my own challenge, which is using some reclaimed beech from my friends at Reclaimed Timber Liverpool and old pennies, an old penny resin table. Now I've actually made this as a gift for my Uncle Fred, who is my inspiration behind the making sort of thing, because ever since I was a little lad, he's always had his little workshop shed in his back garden, and he makes all his own furniture, and he beautifully restores books, and he's like really intricate, and he's very precise about certain things. I've been chatting to him recently, and he's still got his collection on VHS of the new Yankee workshop, and when I showed him a back catalogue of that on YouTube, his eyes just kind of completely lit up. Now it's the pennies came from my uncle, actually, because I told him about my original penny resin table, which was last year, and he came down with an old, very old jar, and he says, "Are these any good to you?" And they were full of completely blackened old pennies, and I was like, wow, I could do something with that, definitely. Now I've made this as a gift for Fred because in all honesty, guy's had a tough few years. He's been a carer for my auntie who we sadly lost in February, and I just thought it'd be nice to just do something nice for him, because obviously it's a difficult time for everyone at the moment, and I just can't wait to show him this and to sit down and have a drink with him and pop our drinks on our little side table here. So I do hope you enjoy this build. If any of the makers out there, I am planning on putting another video out, hopefully Sunday evening, with some of the pictures just sent in, but also links to the other challenges, which I'm really looking forward to this weekend to watch. I'm looking forward to learning a lot and seeing how you guys get on. This build itself, if you feel like some of the bits might have been rushed through a little bit, there's just because there's so many processes to go through as a one-handed maker or a one-handed woodworker. So there is quite a bit of speeded up footage in this, just to try and cram through all the features. But if you're interested in doing something like this and you don't think I've gone through in enough detail, then please just get in touch. All the contact details are down below, and I'll be able to give you a little bit more of a detailed response, you know, whether it's via email or via social media. And I can also link you to some of my previous projects as well. The legs are basically identical to a previous video I've done, just on a smaller scale. And I have done a penny resin table before, which had over 1,000 pennies. This one was quite straightforward. It only had 116. Anyway, take care, folks. Hope this might try and fill a little bit of a gap of what would have been Makers Central this weekend, but we'll see, hopefully for the future, that event is postponed and not cancelled, and I'll be really looking forward to that, because hopefully we'll have the opportunity to actually meet in person. Take care, guys, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Thank you. I'm using 18mm MDF as the base for my tabletop. It's what I had to hand, and I'm just cutting it to size on the table saw, the dimensions being 38cm by 29. Now, any who took on the one-handed makers challenge, wonder if you had any of this with the tape measure, trying to get it to stay in place. I think I've got about 10 hours of unedited footage across my videos of trying to work a tape measure correctly. Anyway, just using the sliding feature on the table saw just to cut, and the mitre gauge. Now, it's really important that you prep the MDF well if you're going to do a resin table, because you do not want the resin soaking in. So I used 2 coats of acrylic primer undercoat with a light sanding in between before I'm going to apply the top finish. Now, whilst that was drying, I still had some planed reclaimed beech from my last leg project, so I am just cutting it to size for the edges of the tabletop. Just cutting it through and running it through the thicknesser, just so it's all uniform on size. Now, with the MDF being 18mm, I decided to cut the edges at 22mm high, so that then gave me a natural edging for the resin pour for later on. As I said, just using a light sanding pad in between coats of the acrylic primer, and then I found some Dulux feature wall olive green, as it was what I had in the house, but I thought it'd go well with the actual the bronze coloured pennies. Okay, this has been marinating overnight, shall we say, in whatever vinegar I could find in the kitchen, which was very off red wine vinegar and white wine vinegar, I think, and a job lot of salt. I was going to use Frank's little workshop technique for cleaning up pennies, which was a brilliant idea to use teacup, but I haven't got any teacup. So let's open this up and rinse it off. Jeez. Jesus. Oh my. Okay, I'm going to address the elephant in the room, which is my new sliding miter saw from Festool that I've had for a little while, and I've had several questions about it. Now, I'm just showing you this in real time. I'm not going to talk anything about the miter saw at this point, that's for a future video, but I'm just showing you the stand and how clever the stand is, that in no time at all I can wheel it out, set it up, and it's ready to go. Just adjusting the angle to 45 degrees for the miter cuts on the actual edging, for the beech edging for the tabletop. The issue of one-handed sanding. Now, here's some valuable tips. A non-slip mat you can get from the pound shop, and a clamp, and it works a treat. The clamping up procedure can be a little bit more difficult. As you notice, the speed of this that's actually taking place takes a little while, but with a little bit of ingenuity and a little bit of adaptation, you can get these to work. These clamps I've got are absolutely excellent. They really are. They're very strong and they do the job really well. You've just got to kind of take your time, really, as much as glue setting will allow you to take time. Now, this part is a really important part of the process if you're making a penny resin table. And if you do this correctly, you don't have to create a polypropylene mould then. All I'm doing is I'm running some decorator's cork around the edging between the MDF and the beech edging and making sure it forms a sealed unit. So what you can do that way is just making sure it's all sealed and left it to go dry, left it to go off, and then I can paint over it with the olive paint that I had. And then you've got a natural pool, if you like. So when you do the resin pour later, it won't leak through the beech or the MDF. Now, I'm just using my favourite Pro Lignum Heidelberg hard wax oil. 2 coats of that just on the beech edging. That really, really does pop the grain out, and it's really starting to look the business now. Right, I think we've got everything. Coins, top, glue, right, let's get on with it. Morning. We've reached the stage where I'm going to have a go at polishing these pennies now they've been attached. I've got my polishing pad, £1, damp sponge, damp cloth. This is either going to be one of them things that's truly inspired, or I'm going to have no video for my own Makers Challenge. Well, let's see how it goes. It's looking alright. Best go and give that a clean. Okay, now we're on to the resin pour itself. If you want the formula for working out how much resin you need, it is the depth in millimeters times the width in meters times the length in meters, which for this project, and I'm using Glass Cast 3, gave me, I think it was approximately 340 grams of resin that I needed. So I rounded it up to 400 grams just in case. And make sure once you've mixed it, using a 2-to-1 mix ratio by weight, you give it a thorough mixing through. I find this technique really helps by actually applying a thin layer of resin with a brush first, just in case when you've glued down the pennies there might be a slight pocket of air underneath them, and this helps form a tight seal so we don't get any air. Onto making the table legs. I have decided for the time being to retire my planer, or if you're in the States, my jointer, because I just think it's too dangerous for a one-handed woodworker to use. I just can't really find a very safe way of being able to apply equal pressure on both sides. But I have decided that my hand planer works fine, so I got a piece of my reclaimed Beech and I planed two sides using the hand planer, and then ran the third side through the table saw before the final side to give it nice square planed through the thicknesser. Then it was a case of just simply cutting the pieces to size on the miter saw, and then with this being quite thick, this piece of Beech, I then ran it through the table saw again to cut it in half, which would give me just the nice dimensions for this kind of table. Now, if you have watched my table leg creations before, and I will leave a link in the description, you will have seen this fantastic jig from Carmonious Finn's Nickery's page, which he created and was manufactured for me by my one of my subscribers and friend, Jeff. And just to show you, if you took on this challenge and you tried any kind of jointing, doweling, how difficult that would actually be, but with a really clever jig. It's about as good as it gets, that. With all the dominoes cut, it's then simply a case of gluing, clamping, squaring, tapping, trying to make it all come together in some way, shape or form. sanded the legs initially at 120 grit before moving up to 180 and then finishing at 240. Again, if you notice, the non-slip mat really does help with these kind of things. Before finally adding 2 coats of the Heidelberg Pro Lignum. Again, really pops the grain up lovely and give a lovely finish to these table legs. Now, unfortunately, I don't actually have the footage for attaching the tabletop to the table legs, as I thought I'd recorded it, and unfortunately it hadn't. But it was simply a case of just getting some little L brackets and putting the top onto the legs. I really do hope you've enjoyed this. Please take care of yourselves. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and think about subscribing. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.